President Zelensky once again calling on NATO for a no-fly zone.
Totality of our economic sanctions.
You hear about the humanitarian corridor.
When it comes to the conflict in Ukraine, there are a lot of terms that are being thrown around. Here are a few that you should know.
Oligarchs are Russian businessmen who amassed wealth very quickly after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, most of them through friendships and corruption, basically. They control different parts of the Russian infrastructure. So the Biden administration has developed a task force to go after property, such as yachts and summer homes and things of this nature. And the hope is that the small group, relatively small group of men can apply some pressure to Vladimir Putin to make him stand down this war. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization was started after World War II. Its whole purpose was to stand against the Soviet Union. Nations like France, Britain, United States, they stood up this alliance, which and it has a defining principle that, attack against one is attack against all. One of the things that Putin brings up when he has his list of complaints against the West is the fact that, Ukraine was being considered as becoming a member of the NATO alliance. They're not, of course, and they haven't been brought in, but just the threat of that was enough for Putin to, launch this assault into Ukraine. His big fear is that, the alliance would preposition military forces and capabilities along his border that would threaten the existence of Russia.
Sanctions are measures like, hey, let's cut Russia off from the global banking system. That's one set of sanctions. Let's all agree not to buy Russian oil. It's a set of agreements between countries on one side of a conflict to kind of like politically and economically ostracize a country that is a bad actor.
Russia wants to decapitate the government of Ukraine. They want to overthrow that government and install their own. And the way that they're applying that pressure is by going after major population centers. They've already launched over 600 missiles into major cities, creating a humanitarian crisis. And seeing this, Ukraine has tried to cut a deal with Russia to be able to open up a number of corridors in which civilians are allowed to leave combat zones. Russia has already been seen to have violated this and to have targeted these areas. When we think of a nuclear weapon, we think of obliterating an entire city. Tactical nuclear weapons are designed to be more contained to a limited geography, to a smaller area of space. No army, no nation has ever used a tactical nuke in combat before. The United States has said its nuclear umbrella extends to the NATO allies, of course. Ukraine is not a NATO ally, but just a use of a nuclear weapon would demand that the United States would have to respond in some meaningful way. The United States has had air superiority over every war since World War II. So the idea with a no-fly zone is that the United States does not allow another military to operate over a specific area. And if any aircraft breached that airspace, the United States or its allies would shoot down the enemy aircraft. This is off limits for the Biden administration because it puts American pilots in direct combat with Russian pilots. The risk of escalation and going into a worldwide conflict, it grows exponentially greater. The United States has done no-fly zones before, most recently in Libya and also in Iraq, but the air forces they faced there were largely run down in much smaller numbers.
So SWIFT is a messaging system that allows banks to communicate with each other about transactions that are being made. And by cutting Russia off from SWIFT, it means that people and organizations and banks inside Russia can no longer communicate with the outside banking world and complete transactions that are very important to doing business in the country and doing business internationally.
The Bayraktar drones are smaller drone systems that they're Turkish made, and they've been used to devastating effect on Russian military. The Russian military has been stalled, and they've encountered stiff resistance in almost every place that they've gone. You know, they're running out of fuel and food, and the logistics problems that they've had have basically made them sitting ducks. They're stalled out, and these Turkish-made drones have been, perfect to hit those targets on the ground.